Honored to have architect Richa Bose here today with us to give us her take on responsive site planning strategies. So I welcome ma'am from the team of Glass Academy to give us her take on this topic.
Uh, Thank you, Shivani. Thank you, ASE, Ethos, and Glass Academy for this opportunity. Very short introduction about us. So basically, I'm Richa Bose, architect, and me and my associate, Anubha Fatehpuria, who is also an architect. So we basically practice from Bangalore. We have been individually working in Calcutta for the past almost 19-20 years now. And we came together for about I think 9 to 10 years ago. We came together as associate team, and we are practicing together. We have our small studio, and we are largely working on projects, small scale projects, large scale projects. It's a mixed practice. Also, we take up, we're largely doing architecture projects, but also some small interiors projects which interest us, very specific interior related work, which we are kind of interested in. We primarily are looking at trying to generate a kind of interesting work language in which we are looking at a little bit of looking at local materials, contextual work, looking at eco-sensitive, some kind of recycling. So it's a mix of everything, but the approach is a little sustainable, trying to put in a little sustainable effort in whatever way we can do. For example, in interiors, there is not much which we can possible because the space is already there. But whatever intervention we do in terms of product design, in terms of the different elements that we introduce. And that is which we thought our approach today in this presentation would be, when we are looking at a specific context, which the presentation is about, responses to site. So we were basically looking at that, okay, site is something that which has been given to us as an architect, as an interior designer. So it can be an architectural space, it can be an interior space. So it is a site for us. So the subject is responsive site planning strategies. So as we explained, that we are basically approaching this presentation through the various elements that we look at when we are approaching any design, either at initial stage when we are looking at the planning level, like an introduction to the approach to the design, or even at a later on stage we are looking at detailing. So let me just start with the presentation. Okay, so the first approach, one of the first things which we look at is whenever there is any site is given to us, we look at the basics, like the directions, the sun path, and the movement of the sun from in the different directions is very critical in number one. It is in laying out of any particular design that we are looking at. So how the sun moves, it is very important. So we do this study to basically look at openings towards the north, and how the sun is moving, and towards the west we kind of try to shield it with services and circulation and non-active zones. And also at the detailing level, when we are looking at windows, so then we look at what is the kind of filtration of the sun's rays that get inside, and what are the kind of shading devices that we must use. And this is an example of how we have integrated. So this is a project in which we made these screens which are movable screens. So the way the sun moves, the screens can actually slide and guard. And also another added advantage of this is because this building is right on the road, it is these also act like a privacy screen. So according to the kind of a privacy level, the screens can be worked out. And another interesting thing about these screens that they are recycled. So these are basically old windows sourced from the same building. We have added on to it and introduced a kind of a design element in the form of some cutout. So it becomes an interesting feature which is both a part of the interior space, as well as it also extends itself to the architectural language of the city. Now, another following the same, these are horizontal shading devices. The screens that we showed were vertical. These are horizontal shading devices, normally known as pergolas, and we use it in very different contexts. In terraces, if there is, some mix of sunlight which is needed, but there is some part of shade and rain protection needed. So we work with different materials, like, we explore different materials. We use glass, so we are not averse to using, certain materials. The approach is that whatever we use, it should be appropriate to the context that we are using. So if we want the kind of a vision towards the sky, but we are looking at a rain protection, so we use materials that are appropriate to it. And at the same time, it has to be, design is something which is very important. So aesthetically also, it has to go with the language of the building that we are looking at. Now, the water is something which we definitely look at in all the designs that we do. So this is a building in Calcutta itself, where we have there is very high rainfall. Now, what we started looking at in this building is how we can celebrate, because the site where it was, let me just show you a slide which explains this. So this is the building, and there is an existing water body here. So this building was located right next to a water body, and the site becomes beautiful when it rains. So we were just looking at how we can, enjoy the process when water falls, when it is raining and with so much of water around. So we introduced these water spouts here, so which basically are which avoid, number one, avoid the use of these plastic pipes, which otherwise, just come down from everywhere. And also they basically divert all the water to this water body, which is adjacent to it. And this water body, because as we all know, the groundwater tables are all falling down. So we do this groundwater recharging, and basically this water, whatever rain that falls on this particular building, all the water basically just gets diverted into this pond. Now, this is another, it is a part of the same project. So we also work a lot with skylights and courtyards. So it also brings down right in the heart of the space. It brings in a good amount of daylight in, and at the same time, it also facilitates ventilation in hot and humid climates. Now, as you saw, that this site has, in fact, this whole campus has 4 big water bodies. So there is humid space. It's in Calcutta. It is a hot and humid climate, and the site itself has a lot of water around. So what we are also we were also very conscious while designing this, and this particular project was a treatment center. So it was a non-AC space largely. So the comfort level of the residents, the patients here who are coming for their treatment, it was very important for them to be comfortable in a hot and humid zone. So ventilation was a very important criteria, and there was a lot of, so we ensured that there is a lot of airflow by introducing, so there was a mix of, we introduced jalis, we introduced courtyards, we introduced these skylights. So from every possible way, we were trying to, get the air in, and also ensuring that, the air is moving out through these courtyards and other openings. And also an added feature is that we try to retain all the trees which are there on site as much as possible from our end, unless and until, because of any storm or any calamity, or the tree like falls down, or the tree is like naturally weak. But otherwise, it's a very, very conscious step from our end that whatever features are there on the site, especially trees, water bodies, we try to retain them. So this is a view of this particular project, and this is the water body that you see. These are the existing trees, and there are trees even inside the building. And as you see, these are the water spouts in different planes of the building. And the building looks beautiful when it rains, because there are just streams of water falling down during the rains. Now, this was a very small project, a room on the terrace, basically. But on similar lines, we were trying to encourage the residents to use their terrace, and we gave them a certain shaded space, and also how they can celebrate the water which is falling on their terrace. So we introduced rain chains, so which bring the water down instead of, otherwise you introduce like a plastic pipe which takes the water from the upper level to the lower level. So in small ways, but we are also looking at, certain conscious approaches to green building design. Now, this is one project which we're doing in Shanti Niketan. And if you look at the site here, this is the site profile. And there are a lot of trees here in the site. All the trees retained, I think, barring one which was somewhere here at the entrance, this particular tree, one of these tree, I think, had to be cut out because it was right in the middle of the door here. The profile of the building exactly follows the site. So this is again one of the things which we would like to say, that it is always not necessary that one has to think of a form, and then kind of work on it. It largely, many times, and mostly most of the times for us, it basically the site has guided in giving a form and an individual character to our projects. So this site has this particular profile. So our building follows that. If you would notice, this is a north-south orientation which we have. So there is, it's for an artist couple. So the studios basically have large openings towards the north. There is this courtyard here. So we are looking at and all the services here, the toilets, all the toilets are basically the kitchen, the toilets, all the septic tank, all the services are basically located towards the south. So towards the rear. So the north basically is entirely open. And there are also these existing trees. There is a beautiful bamboo grove here, all of which has been retained. And again, in here, all the water which is basically falling on the terrace. So like you see the blue lines which are shown here are basically the direction of the rainwater pipes. So how this water which falls into this courtyard is being collected here. And then there are these water spouts which are collecting water from here. And then all this water basically goes into a existing well at the site. This was a dry, but we are proposing to recharge it by diverting all the water of the site into this well. So the project is still ongoing, construction is going on. So this is one of the recent pictures. So these are the trees at the site, and it's just the basic construction has the structure is over. We are working on the masonry right now. But as you see, it's a very green site and very shaded. The trees also act as privacy screens. The similar courtyard, this is a project in Palampur. This is in Himachal. So the climate there is like, it's a cold zone. But here also we look at the same, a similar kind of approach where we are looking at working with local materials, but you see the language of the materials here is different. So we recycled some, there are more photographs of this project later on. So we recycled wood from a church close by, which was a court which was being demolished. So the wood, the flooring, as you see, is a local stone flooring. There's a lot of wood even we have used because that it's like a recyclable material. It's locally available. And these courtyards help also to help in ventilation as well as they bring daylight in. Now, so this is a project which the earlier project which I showed you closer to the water body. And in this, if you see, these are the detailing that I was telling you, that we work with a lot of these perforated materials. And the airflow has been ensured because there is a certain level of privacy needed because it's a treatment area. So we couldn't take windows at a lower level. So what we attempted was that we tried taking windows at the top level, and with these courtyards, so there was a continuous airflow which was generated here. Now, looking at wind, again, this is one of the interior projects that we completed very recently. Now, so this was a building which we already had this, the windows and the openings and the space was given to us, like I mentioned earlier. So what we also want to say here is that every time it is not important for us as architects and designers to always introduce a new material. We sometimes we think as designers that no, we should, everything we need to design and we need to build anew. But sometimes, and it is also very important to retain which is as good as recycling. So these are, as we all know, louvered windows are one of the most important features of the Calcutta architectural vocabulary. And it is a language of, it is like the language of the city. So when these windows, and here the clients right from the beginning, they wanted, no, I think we should do away with these buildings. Let's have those aluminum windows. And we tried to explain to them, and eventually now these windows have become like one of the main features by which this project gets identified with. So this is one of the views of the project. Now, also looking at now passive cooling. So in a place like Delhi, so this is a project in Delhi. It's an auditorium space. It's a semi-basement space. So we were asked to help the clients in renovating this space. It used to become very hot during summers and very cold in winters. And AC was not a possibility here. So and being in Delhi, so 2-3 interventions that we did here. It was an open space here. So we covered this up with colored glass here, and we introduced exhausts. I'll explain the whole process to you. And on the lower level, we worked with 2 layers of these chicks, which the bamboo chicks, which we painted black. We put the screen inside. I'll just show you. So this is the view from inside. So it's like, you see, it's an auditorium. This is how the steps go. And inside we used a layer of black colored bamboo chicks, and outside we introduced these khas chicks. So khas is a very local material which is available in Delhi. And we introduced a drip system here. So what happens is that during summers, these outside, they draw both the layers of these chicks, the outside and the inside, and they put the drip system on. So the outside layer is it gets cooled up, and the exhaust basically help to draw the cold air, the hot air, which cools down when it passes through these 2 screens. And these exhausts basically initiate a kind of a circulation. The inside of, and in winters, what happens is it gives a kind of an insulation. And during rains, what happens is that they keep this outside open, and this inside space, it allows a certain movement of air from inside outside, so that the humidity is taken care of. So this basically works. And if they want this space, for example, in winters, if they want to enjoy the greenery around and the pleasant, they just pull both these layers up, and it is, so the space also can extend out into its surroundings, which is they have lots of beautiful trees around, and there is a lawn here, and there is also a exchange of the inside and the outside space. So it works at all the levels. This is that Palampur project that I was talking about. So another important feature that we look at sites is the contours, the existing contours. So there was a existing stream here. So apart from the other things, so we have also already explained the courtyards and everything. So I'll not go into the trees and the courtyards and everything. So contours we have retained in this site as completely. So building follows the contours. And the existing stream basically has been extended into a water body, which forms a part of this. So this is that project, in which we have also used local materials. So the mud that you see here, the blocks were basically made out of the mud which came out from the excavation of the site. The wood, as I had told you, we resourced from local building which was being demolished. And the roof here, the profile here is very contemporary, but basically the roof, the materials is which is used here locally by the local people around. So we did a recce of the whole space, whole area, and we identified what are the local materials, and for the roofing system, and we used those local materials into designing a contemporary roof profile for this project. So this is what, and we are also looking at introducing balconies so that one can enjoy the sun, and then there are these dormers which bring in sun from an upper level. So this is during the construction stage, same project. Now, insulation from walls. So passive, extending the passive cooling to further building systems using the same regular materials into developing masonry bonds which help, and rat trap, as we all know, is a very effective building system for that. So in most of our projects, architectural, it has, apart from the insulation that it provides, it also helps in bringing down the material cost. And we also can take, the concealed electrical routing from these, so that the unnecessary cutting and chasing and taking it all can be avoided. Now, another feature that we work in sites where we do not have the luxury of having big courtyards and skylights in the interior, and also when we are working on higher levels, when we are not on ground. So if you are looking at a G+2 or a G+3, so this is in Calcutta, but this is a G+3 space in Lake Gardens. So here we have introduced chill pools inside the building, so inside the space. So it works as a passive cooling element, and this water body, it's a small chill pool, but it's being shared between two rooms. So it very well gives a very interesting aspect of having a water body as if you were on the ground floor. Now, this is again an example of a site with an unusual profile. So this was the profile of the site which was given to us. So our building follows this profile, and so a very interesting form gets generated out of it. And there was an existing bamboo grove in the center, so we retained that space and we built around it. And also then looking at other trees, all the trees have been retained. The courtyard works like, a ventilation, for ventilation and for bringing daylight in. And there are a lot of windows all around. So it's a very, well ventilated and well lit space. Another project explaining the same concept, that this was the profile of the site which was given to us. So the building basically just follows the profile. This was an auditorium project. Now, suppose if we do not have any features as a part of our site, but we do have certain features like water bodies or trees, which, in the plot or on the roadside. So what do we do with such sites? So then what we are trying to do is we try to borrow these elements into our design visually. Physical proximity is not possible, but a visual borrowing is definitely possible. So for example, this is a very small apartment building, but there were these beautiful trees in the adjacent plot. So we designed this window with colored glass, but we kept some portions open, some portions closed. So we have very interesting daylight coming in. And at the same time, we are also allowing the adjacent trees to become a part of our space. Again, a similar approach. This is a cafe project in which these trees that you see outside, so these trees are on the road and along on the adjacent plot. So this entire facade, we consciously designed it as a glass facade. And these trees naturally provide the kind of a screen that we want to shield the glass. So so it was getting shaded here. And similarly, this another project in which there is a beautiful tree in the corner here. So this corner, the turning of the building was kept like, soft circular turning with no columns or walls on this corner, so that one can enjoy the view of this tree beautifully from the spaces inside. Again, following these were the trees which existed on the site. So it was a very small plot, very narrow plot with these trees. So all the trees retained here. And again, the building system used here was, we tried to economize. So no plastering, no cladding, exposed brickwork. And we were looking at then how to enhance this exposed brickwork in terms of design by, detailing of using corbelling and other aspects. This is a project again which is going on, and that is why a photograph which we have just received this week from the site. This is a performance space, basically performance workshop space. So it's a large hall, and we are trying to, it was a very budget conscious project. So what we are also looking at here is, if you would notice, there are no lintels here. The high ceiling was a requirement here because of the requirements of the space, but we designed a truss here which brings in daylight in, so it is a very well lit space. Corbelling has been used to design these triangular windows, so there is no lintel above these windows. And the walls, the design element here is that the walls, because it's a space for performance and dance and music, the walls here has been designed as, you know, curved walls in this manner. So it's basically the exposed brick itself and the way the brick has been used which gives a beauty to this particular, that's a response to the particular requirement of the project. And the materials, the stone, which has, it's a stone floor, so we try and work with local materials as much as possible. Now, this was a project as a part of the Ravindra Sarovar site in Calcutta, where the clients approached us with, they wanted to, if you would notice my cursor and follow the drawing, they wanted a building right here in the heart of the green lawns here, which was basically spoiling the entire green of the lawn, and also would not have served the purpose. It was like a 3 feet high plinth which they wanted. So what we explained to them was that their requirement was basically a performance. They wanted a stage where, you know, different activities related to performance would be conducted. So what we know on the lake, so this is the lake and along the water body, so this is the existing jogging track, and we noticed that there was a small patch of land which was like with the lake as the backdrop, and we could extend the jogging track into this stage so that there is minimal, there is practically no disturbance to the joggers who use the jogging track in the morning. So what we requested them to allow to do was to give a gradual slope from this jogging track to this area, and then extend this onto this stage, and again give a ramp back here, so that number one, the joggers don't have a problem. Number two, we are just leveling this space in between the trees here, and that's it, and that's the performance space. The trees are there existing, so we retained all the trees on this stage which were there, right, you know, in between and around, so not a single tree was cut. And as you would see, this space is very interestingly used with the lake as the backdrop and the trees existing, and it is used at all times of the day. It is also one of the jobs of architects to consciously obviously retain the environment and the natural features of any site as much as possible, also do minimal intervention. So it is not, as I explained earlier also, it is not important to, you know, do like everything and design a lot to be able to, you know, come up with a kind of a sustainable solution. Then we work a lot with skylights also. So this is a skylight which is a part of a G+3 project, and it is bringing daylight in, and one is able to view the sky in spite of, you know, being on the from, you know, like inside of a space. We also work, then recycling is something, recycling, reusing, repurposing is also something which we try to do as much as possible in our project. So this is these are the existing windows of this particular house, which were introduced to bring a facade here on the roadside. Now privacy was an issue here, so we worked with these louvers into creating this kind of a panel and a partition. But because of this beautiful tree, what we attempted was to give a skylight here, so that when one is inside, one can also view outside, and the tree is beautifully framed. It brings a beautiful connect from someone who's sitting inside. Another project in which the building profile, as I explained earlier, follows the shape of the tree. So there are two trees here. One is towards the rear and one is here. So this building basically follows the tree. All the services here are located towards the west. Another aspect important here in this is that this is the minimum side margin that we were allowed to keep here. What we consciously decided was that we shift this building towards the right, because there is an existing passage here. So this side of the building is already getting a frontage of this passage here. But if this building was oriented towards this side, then this narrow passage would have, because there's an existing building here very adjacent. So we shifted this building towards this passage. So now this building enjoys a wider open space towards this side as well as this side. And the front and the rear do have a certain setback from the adjacent boundaries. And this is the north. So even though there are these bedrooms here, it is getting the unobstructed view of the north direction. This is another interior space in which the skeleton of the building has been retained. So the site was given to us. We don't use any false ceilings. We exposed the beam, the existing building systems, and even the space was also being used as a art gallery. So the grids and all have all been left exposed. Another project, same features, the building system, the arches, the lintels, the masonry, all exposed. This is another this is an interior project in which, apart from the material optimization, we were also looking at recycling of furniture and lights. So as much as possible, we work on, upscaling or changing the furniture so that it suits the revised interiors. And this particular chandelier, for example, it was an existing piece which they had, which we tried to, give it, put it in a different context against the different interiors that this particular space is taking. Similar, I would not go into the other details of, material optimization. This is a cement floor. Here, the furniture is an important part of this project, in which, we have tried to do a mix and match of different kinds of furniture and give it a more like a, jugaad kind of a concept. The ceiling, as you see, again is exposed. Working interestingly with cement floors. That's something which you look at. Cement is a very basic, very, nice natural flooring material we work with, but again using, different colors, different patterns. So it need not be a plain cement floor all the time. So we are attempting with inlay, also bringing some color and doing counters with it. Filler slabs is an important thing which we are trying to do in most of our projects these days, exploring them in different contexts. For example, doing a mix and match with natural retaining and white. This is this Shanti Niketan project that I was talking to you about. Again, bringing in different colors in the filler slabs and working with different. Now, this is trying to work with whatever is a natural material available locally in the site. So this is, we working with a combination of bamboo and MS. So composite engineered structures. Again, designing screens with bamboo. So these are basically foldable screens, which can be opened up and then, carried and then assembled and then again. Now this was repurposing existing old doors we used in this project. So these are these old doors, and these are these panels which we cut, and we introduced glass here to bring in daylight in. And these panels we try to use and convert them into light designs, light fixtures. So this is the lighting which they have above their dining table. And we also work a lot with these local materials. This is shola, and which is a very local material in Bengal. So this is the light. This is another using another light design using what they existed. So these are record sleeves of the client, and we repurposed the old gramophone into a kind of, a light feature. This, as I explained, if you would see, again, these are local stone floors. old doors which have been recycled here. These are old tiles from a project which we have designed in a contemporary manner. So this was a staircase which had earlier very old floors, lighting design and the furnishing design. So we designed these tables and chairs has been done using what they had. So these are some lampshades. Now again, this was for a performance group. It was a part of a renovation of their rehearsal space, and this was a veranda which they had, which was in shambles. Now they wanted to introduce a cafe here, which also would serve like a discussion and interaction zone during performances or during rehearsals. So what we did was, they had a lot of these trunks which these performance groups traveled with. So we converted these trunks into the bases for their tables, and above that we designed these trays for them, which basically help them in as tabletops. It serves them, and otherwise it also, whenever they are going for their performances, they basically just carry the trunk. So it is a kind of a easy system for them, which works for them in both ways. These are like old saris from the family, which have been used to design partitions. These are like, old vessels which people have used to design, lighting systems. Again, local materials like coconut shells used to design light installations for staircases. Again, this is like one of the saris of the lady of the house, which was like a vintage sari in the family, and this sari forms like the backdrop of her apartment space. Now, multiple usage of space is something which we always promote. So this is a performance space in Calcutta, designed on the theater, and it has been designed in such a way that it can be used in all seasons at all times with different configurations. Again, this is the same cafeteria space that I explained earlier, but this is, for example, it is also like an art gallery. So the walls here have been designed, and the lighting has been provided in such a way that the walls can also be used to display. And there is a corner here which has been provided for them to, be doing live gigs, or, having reading sessions. Or so one single space can be used in different levels of activities. Now, I think this is the last slide. So yeah, so I would just like to conclude by, this is one of the projects which we did in Calcutta again. And it is also very important for architects and designers to be sensitive to, so we were looking at environment, and we look at materials, and we are looking on optimizing. It is also very important for architects to be sensitive to the surroundings. So this was a particular shop for which we were asked to do the interiors. It was situated in a mall, and right in front of the shops there were these hawkers. Now this shop was for farmers, which would basically get their produce from their farmlands, and they would sell it here. So we were working two contexts here. We were trying to make those farmers comfortable. They should not get inhibited by their selling shop being in a big mall. And also we were very conscious that across the road there are these hawkers which are there, and they should not get intimidated by the very produce and stuff which they are selling. If it is being sold across the shop, across the road in a mall, it should not be something which should kind of destabilize them. So we worked with materials which they are familiar with, which they are using, which is like the same stuff which you see in their shops as well, but we just try to use it in a different context. So for example, the different kinds of grains which are being sold, where we give this lining of this gamcha in the gunny bags here. The various baskets that you see, we use their tools to work with to design lights here, to even designed elements using these buckets, and the lighting system was designed just the way the hawkers have. So I think it is very important for us also to be not always trying to look at buildings or spaces being very like larger than life. It is very important for whatever that we design, it has to merge with the existing surroundings. And that is why when we're talking about response to the site, so we also are looking at something which is a part of the site, as well as, which is like, surrounding.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a very insightful presentation. And we got to see a lot of what we've always been thinking about, how you've been very conscious about the context while designing your projects and very locally oriented. And we got to see a lot of that today from both of your projects. So I'll just go ahead and ask you a couple of questions. Yeah. So let me just start with how I've noticed in most of your projects, you've tried to use the features that are present on the site in your design itself. Like you've mentioned, like the existing trees or water bodies. So first of all, how do you include it in your design, and does it affect or give you any advantage in the functionality of the spaces that are designed because of it?
Anubha, you would like to answer this?
No, go ahead. I'll jump in whenever I.
Okay. So see, trees and water bodies are, see, that is what which the site provides. Okay, so that is what which brings, first of all, it brings a very unique character to the design. So it is like something which is our projects actually become our, and for that, when I say our projects, I mean any architect who is designing on any site. So the features, the existing features are something which, number one, they give a very unique character to a particular design. So whenever we are looking at the existing features on a site, that makes our design automatically, it makes it, creative. And most of the times we have realized that the existing features actually guide us in giving the entrance to the design process. So for example, if there is a water body or if there is a tree, our design process actually starts with, okay, now how we are going to enhance the presence of this particular feature on our site by starting a design around it. So many times it has happened that, there is a beautiful tree, so we start a design around that tree. And we say that, okay, so this is a tree, and if we are suppose having a study corner here, so from here I should be able to view this tree. How can, bring a direct visual access so that one is even in the living room, one should be able to view the tree. So I think functionally a design gets sorted out. We know, okay, where we put the kitchen, where we are putting the services and all that. But I think the presence of any kind of a natural feature, it just brings a very character to the entire design, that we have normally seen that a design then revolves around the existing features which are there at the site.
I think it's important for us as architects to respect what has been given to us.
Yes. Very true.
Instead of just trying to, be, the all, trying to enforce ourselves on what has been naturally given to us, rather than, so we like to respond to what there is, respect what there is, and build around it as far as possible, largely.
Yeah.
I guess that's where my next question comes in. I was going to ask you about the contours, and I understand from an architect's or a designer's point of view, we always try to retain the contours, but what is the client's perspective generally in such case, and how do you tackle with that? In the case of a contours or some.
Yes, so there are, there are all kinds of clients, obviously, and sometimes they don't want the contours. They want, like, on a flat land. Sometimes, since many people also follow Vastu and things like that, so that sometimes goes against the existing contours. So yes, it's a fight. It's a struggle. It's a tough fight. One has to put in the tough fight at least to explain to them logically that, sort of show them in terms of numbers. Okay, this is how you're wasting either resource, or this is how you're wasting labor, and cost goes up because you're trying to, fill up something which is so unnecessary. And we do a lot of models by ourselves, like study models on our own while we're working on a design. So that somehow, sometimes, most of the times, it helps us show the client in 3D that, see, this is what you're going against and this is what you're trying to do. And 8 out of 10 cases, we manage to convince them. 2 out of 10 cases, we don't manage to convince them, for which then the whole process is reversed and we have to think of, okay, how do we mentally and ethically tackle with this and, do our best to address this problem.
I had a similar question about clients when it comes to strategies like rainwater harvesting specifically. Does it generally cost more than not doing it? And if it does, then how do you try and talk to the clients about getting these passive strategies into the design?
I would say that fortunately, in a way, social media has been a boon, because now everything has become a fashion. Everything is a fad. So we hope that there are more and more such fads, at least rainwater harvesting, sustainable architecture. The more these things become fads, it's easier to sell it to the client, because everybody wants to be, moving with the trend. But yes, some clients, of course, are inherently sensitive to these things and understand. They understand the fact that how in the long run they are actually saving, and not look at like the immediate cost, but look at it like, 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line.
Right. So moving on to the next question, I think one of the things, like I said, we've been seeing is how you use a lot of local materials and strategies. So how do you kind of identify which strategy or which material suits the best to your site, depending on the context?
I think, like Richa explained in the presentation, it's really that simple. A lot of the times we don't decide, the site decides for itself. One just has to be open, with all one's senses to receive it.
But then what kind of research that goes into it, like the local kind of research that you must be doing for this particular site?
I think the
material in terms of strategies.
Right. I think the approach has to be there, the general approach that, yes, this is how we will try and approach every project. And then things start popping up themselves in because you're aligned like that. So you start noticing and you start sort of receiving, and therefore it sort of follows.
Okay, since we know you really love using recycled materials or reusing materials, could you point us to your favorite project where you've done a lot of reusing and recycling?
I think a lot of our projects have recycling. It's very difficult to choose any one.
Favorite is yet to come.
That's a very positive outlook, yes.
No, see, in very small ways, in many projects, for example, the clients are very open. In some projects, it so happens, even out of like the demand of the brief of the client, there are not much opportunities in terms of exploring that. So, but in small ways, in our own ways, we try to, introduce some repurposing or recycling. Because see, even if like we are saving on one plastic pipe, so we know that it is like, we are using one plastic pipe lesser. So that is the kind of approach. And if the design is kind of, if the design gets accommodated within the whole scheme of the project, then I think it is a step worth taking. So yeah.
That's something I think everyone will learn from. One last question, just come back to the topic again about site planning strategies, basically. So which has been your most challenging project when it comes to site planning, like where you faced a lot of problems and had to come up with a lot of passive solutions or solutions when it comes to site planning strategies? If you can point us to the process a little bit.
I know one, of course, is contoured lands definitely are challenging. And I think for us, spaces and clients who do not want to depend too much on technology while living, they are challenging in today's times when it's very easy to install an air conditioner and very easy to install all the possible gadgets that are available. But when clients, either because of budget constraint or because of their choice of lifestyle, don't want to easily and heavily depend on such, artificial atmosphere changing gadgets. So they are challenging, and therefore they are also far more exciting for us and far more satisfying.
That's great, ma'am. Thank you for a very insightful presentation again. I thank both of you from on behalf of Saint Gobain and Ethos, and as well as the Glass Academy team. Thank you so much for this.